Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. This is your host, the Barkeep, bringing you podcast 89 here at the Tavern, presented by Hirotaku.com. Well, patrons of the Tavern, I'd like to just go ahead and wish you guys a happy Power Rangers Day here in the waning hours of this day. And yes, it was 21 years ago today that the Fox Kids Network aired Day of the Dumpster, and hey, history was made that day, and I don't think anybody can go ahead and deny that. So, in honor of Power Rangers Day, today we're going to be talking about Akared. Yes. I don't have a Power Ranger topic for you guys today, but I feel like I got something a little bit more interesting to go ahead and talk about. And that's going to be, we're going to be analyzing who and what Akared is and really where he fits into the Sentai mythos and franchise. But before we get to Akared specifically, I want to take a little bit of a deviation to a series that he's not particularly predominant in, but he's made a lot of appearance in and is integral to the plot of that series, and that is Gokaiger. Now, the thing is, Gokaiger has become one of the most popular, if not the most popular Sentai of all time. And I think there are two reasons that contribute to that. I think the first is the superficial aspect of it, which is not necessarily to say that there's something wrong with it, but it is the Gokai changes, the keys, the old Zords, the things of that particular nature. The fact is, up until that point, and even still to this day, Gokaiger is significant in their ability to adapt the powers of previous teams. And that made for a lot of eye candy for the audience. I mean, every week it's like, okay, who are they going to turn into this time? What homage are they going to go ahead and make? Are they going to do an all-blue team this week? Are they going to do an all-pink team this week? Are they going to do the Live Man? Are they going to do Zoo Ranger? Are they going to do Go-Ranger? What are they going to go ahead and do? It really kind of kept a lot of audiences, salivating for what are they going to turn into. Do we finally get to see our favorite costumes in high definition? Do we get to see them do extended battles? And how does this tie in to the past? And all that great stuff. So, again, we got that superficial element from the Gokai changes. Something that even today with Tokuger, because of the relative failure of Go Buster and the somewhat ratings failure of Kyuryuger, a lot of suspicion has been put on the Tokyo changes, which are really very similar to the Gokai changes, except they really don't serve a tactical function other than sharing weapons, which could have been done by just handing them off to somebody else. But I digress. The Gokai change, it was very popular within the series, and I think that's one of the ingredients that made it so successful within the series. The other thing that I think made Gokaiger really successful was its story. Because sitting here, thinking about all the episodes that they had, I had to admit, there are very few points in the story where I thought that there were some problems with it. I liked all the characters. I liked the plot. I liked what was going on. I liked everything about the story. We got the right development. We got great backstories. We got great progression of characters. Even though I'm not well versed in Japanese, I could tell that those actors were delivering their lines appropriately. There was a lot of drama into it. Just a lot of good things about the story. And those two elements of the series, the Gokai change, again, the superficial nature, and the well-crafted characters, story, and plot, puts Gokaiger into the upper echelon of Sentai shows, and everybody walks away with fond memories of it. However, I think one thing that gets overlooked by a lot of people are a lot of the plot holes that do happen in the series that are not necessarily a detriment to the series. And I've mentioned several of these before, one being the great MacGuffin that is the greatest treasure in the universe, the Zords, the nature of the Ranger keys and their powers, things of that nature are really a big issue, at least for me. Now, they do not detract from the overall enjoyment that I have of Gokaiger, but as many of you who've listened to my Mega War video know, that there are a lot of issues there that never get explained and don't make any logical sense, but only make sense to us, the audience, Because again, to revisit some of that Mega War, Legendary War stuff, the only reason there are 34 teams is because we recognize those 34 teams based on the 34 programs that came before Gokaiger. Not that it makes logical sense that those who ascended to heaven, those who descended to hell, those from other planets, those from other realities, future, whatever and stuff, should all be together in the same place at the exact time in those particular circumstances. And I am referring to both Power Rangers and Super Sentai for committing this same offense. That all being said, I think one of the bigger enigmas of Gokaiger is the character of Akared himself. Because when you think about it, after the Legendary War, Akared is basically the one who, I'm not going to say formed the Gokaiger, but he sowed the seeds that allowed the Gokaiger to come to Earth, do what it is they needed to do, and eventually succeed. So he is not the mentor or the creator of the Gokaiger, but he is a very strong influence in how they became the Gokaiger and how they got to Earth, basically. And I'm going to kind of backtrack a couple of things, because Akared did not originally appear in Gokaiger. He originally appeared in the film Gokaiger vs. Super Sentai, which was the 30th anniversary series. Now, for those of you who have not seen the movie, basically the time demon god Kronos takes the five of the Gokaigers and sends them into another dimension, reality, parallel, whatever. He sends them somewhere, and only Boken Silver is left. At this point, Akared, who has been monitoring the time demon, comes to Boken Silver and gives him the Super Sentai address book, and basically charges him with finding other Super Sentai members to help him in aiding him to defeat the time god and save the other Gokaiger. Pretty straightforward plot. We see you get the roundup scene with Boken Silver, and you end up bringing several characters back into the fold. And it's your standard movie fare. There really isn't much to go ahead and say about it. The fact that we have the previous Sentai Rangers in there is very significant for a lot of people. But the most significant thing is this does, again, as the phrase I used before, sow the seeds for Gokaiger, in that we have the appearance of Akared. Now, the thing about Akared in this movie is when he is questioned with his existence, the way he kind of puts it is that he is the embodiment of the 30 Sentai warriors, meaning that everyone from Akaranger up to Boken Red is somehow the reason that he is in existence, that he is created. Now, what that means is a really big mystery. He is the embodiment of the previous Sentai Reds. Well, what does that mean exactly? Does that mean that he is some sort of constructed being out of their personalities, a constructed being out of their powers? I don't really know what it means to be the embodied spirit. That with that explanation there, that could really go ahead and mean anything. And was it that? And what is he? Is he human? Is he a spiritual being? Is he a non-corporeal life form? We're never actually told what he is. He never takes his helmet off, but he does assume a humanoid form. So we can either assume that he is human, or that he has taken on the appearance of a human, but for what reason exactly? Is the embodied spirits of the previous Rangers or something given him a human form? And not only that, but he also has knowledge that Boken Silver does use. He has the Super Sentai address book, which is actually a giant book where it has a photo and description of the Sentai Rangers in there and where to go ahead and find them. So how does he have this knowledge exactly? He has the book to help Boken Silver find these other Rangers. Now, what led Boken Silver to the specific 4 Rangers that he found is anyone's guess. I mean, you would have to assume that the book has every single Super Sentai in there. Although I'm very curious about some of the entries that are in there, because I'd like to go ahead and go to Tyranno Ranger's page and go to current location, ascended to heaven. I mean, that's what happened, right? Or KIA or MIA or something like that. I'd like to read some of those pages to see where they are. So, of course, there's a question of where he got that book and where he got that particular knowledge, which is never expanded upon. And why is he guiding Boken Silver to do this? Why doesn't he do that himself? And, really, why doesn't he start the Legend War at that point? Now, maybe the Time Demon doesn't really necessitate to form an entire army to go ahead and defeat him. I mean, it only took the Gokangers plus, 5 other Rangers and Akared himself to go ahead and defeat him. But why did he task Boken Silver with doing this? Why didn't he just go get them himself? Because I would almost think that the embodied spirit of previous Rangers, or previous Red Rangers, Sentai Red, whatever, would be a more convincing argument than the current Silver Ranger. But then again, I'm not Japanese and I'm not a Sentai Ranger, so I'm not quite sure, how that would go ahead and work the camaraderie. Because, of course, as we see in almost every Sentai, there is always some sort of resentment and then begrudging respect of their elders down the line. We see that in the Gokaiger movie, of course, that being unique circumstances. We see that in the, I'm trying to think, Geiki Ranger, Bokanger, that's a good one to go ahead and bring up. There's kind of a begrudging resentment, because, they always end up kind of fighting at some point within the series, or not trusting each other. Goanger and Shinkanger, another good example of that. But I'm getting a little bit off topic right here. Let's go back to kind of Akared. So, what we know from the movie is, again, he's the embodiment of the Red Rangers. He has an address book that can go ahead and find any Sentai Ranger. He also has the Soul Advent ability, which allows him, through some means, to transform into previous Sentai Reds or gain their weapons. This is never expanded upon and never explained within the context of the movie, nor within Gokaiger itself. However, it is the precursor to the Ranger Keys, because what we will eventually learn is that Akared is the one who was able to, I wouldn't even say he forged the keys, but basically he was able to find the powers and give them a key form. That's what seems to be implicated here. And for somebody who can transform into previous powers, that seems to be something he would go ahead and do. But that, to me, is almost coincidental given the nature or lack of explanation that we really kind of get with the Ranger Keys. I'll kind of get more into that when we discuss him in Gokaiger. But he's able to do this ability. By what means, we don't know, and again, it's never explained. And one other interesting point that we have in this movie is that he goes to Boken Red once he is saved from the other dimension, and he says to Boken Red, "You are now Chief of Super Sentai." And Boken Red says, "I don't know what that means, but okay." That's pretty much the gist of the conversation. Now, this point is only brought up in the movie, mentioned in that short line of dialogue, never expanded upon in the rest of Gokaiger, to my knowledge, never expanded upon Gokaiger, not even talked about in the conversations that the Gokaigers have with Boken Red in his episode. So what exactly does Akared mean here? It seems to me, in the context of the film alone, what I think he was trying to say is that you are the leader of Super Sentai. That as the current Sentai Red, you are to lead all of them. Which is basically what he does in the film, because once all the teams come together, he basically is the de facto leader, as he is the basically only Red Ranger there outside of Akared himself, who, again, his standing is dubious at best. So why did he make him Chief of Super Sentai? Because the thing about this is that he assumes control of the battle at that point, as he should, as the lead field commander of the Bokanger. but we never see him in that role again. Yes, he does appear in Gokaiger at least twice, to my knowledge, and of course in the movie, and he appears, the actor that is, in the episode where the Gokaigers are present, or that's the main plot. They are finding a precious, basically, to which he detains. But I would think that if he makes him Chief of Super Sentai, shouldn't he be the one who's leading all these efforts for the other Sentai? I don't understand what the context of that sentence means. And again, why was it never picked up on? I mean, somebody wrote that, rehearsed it, and acted it out. And it was eventually edited into the final film. But why was it never expanded upon? What was Akared's meaning to that? What was he trying to go ahead and accomplish with Boken Red? And again, why did Boken Red never really follow up on it? Because it seems to me that the Chief of Super Sentai, as we will see later on in Gokaiger, is Akaranger himself. Because it was Akaranger and Big One who got all the previous Sentais together, not Boken Red. So I'm not really understanding why he bestowed this title, this meaningless title, on him, and it was never brought up again. So at the end of the movie, Akared goes to sleep, basically, is kind of the way that it's put, until he is needed again. After the Legendary War, which again, he did not gather all the Rangers together, nor did he seem to aid in that particular battle, he finds that all the powers are going off into space, and it is his job. He has tasked himself with retrieving the Ranger keys and bringing them back to Earth. Now, there is debate, as I said, whether or not he forged the Ranger keys. I would say it's almost likely that he did somehow. And why I say that is, if you watch the battle, basically what happens is that all the Rangers, or all the Sentai, sacrifice their powers, it destroys the fleet, and they disperse into yellow energy orbs and fly off into space. Oddly enough, in one straight line, in one direction. Why? I don't know. But when Akared, Marvelous, and Bosco eventually find these keys, they are actually in key form. Somewhere between being a sphere of light and a key, something happened. And I don't think it's a natural process that when the power leaves any particular Ranger, that's going to revert into a key-like form. Now, let's go ahead and use Zoo Ranger Mighty Morphin as an example here. The power of those particular teams are found in the power coins / Dino Metal. When the power leaves, or when you are no longer control the power, it's in the Dino Metal. It's in this coin form. So, if a Zoo Ranger was to lose his powers, and not necessarily them being destroyed, but they were to leave him, then it would revert back to the Dino Metal, which of course is powered by the Dino Buckler or the Morpher. How it would get into a key form does not seem like a natural occurrence. Let's also consider the Gokaiger powers. The Gokaiger powers, which are formed from cards, and they use the Gosei devices to activate them. Well, if you don't have the Morpher, that ability leaves you, and I don't think it would turn into a key. It would revert into a card. Am I wrong on that? What's even more interesting is when we get into powers such as those as the Jetman, which is made by scientific, energy, basically, Birdonic waves, which are beamed into the person and bonded with them to increase their strength, abilities, and so forth. So are we to believe that when the Jetman lost their powers, that they lost the Birdonic waves, which were embedded into their bodies? I mean, that doesn't seem to be the case. Now, we don't actually see a living Jetman within the series, so we don't know if they still have those particular abilities, but it was always my understanding of Jetman, which I've only seen the first episode of. I will eventually see the entire series. It was my understanding that their morphers gave them the suits as protection and flight and durability and so forth, but all the powers of the strength and everything that made them the Jetmen were these powers that were bonded to them. So again, how they could lose them, you know, because that makes very little sense, and then that power be formed into a key doesn't make, there's no explanation for that. And I can go on and on. I mean, Gokaiger, you know, with the power of the Beast Fist, which is a learned ability, which is in every person, if you are to believe what the Gokaiger are teaching, for that to actually be separated and turned into a key doesn't make any sense naturally. But let's give the series a mulligan on this one and say, yes, the power's left. And let us make the assumption that Akared has forged the powers into key forms. To what end? I'm not sure. Because let's look at what his plan is. His plan is to gain all the powers back and return them to the Super Sentai so they could continue to fight, presumably against a coming Zanyak fleet or just any future instance of hostility that the Earth would go ahead and face. Because Akared, like all Sentai, seem to be charged with protecting the Earth. That's pretty much their mission. Okay? So to do this, he acquires the abilities of Marvelous and Bosco, to which he lies to them about his plan. He manipulates them. I mean, think about that for a second. He says to these guys, we're after the greatest treasure in the universe, to which he needs the keys in order to go ahead and return to the Rangers. But coincidentally, these keys also allow you to access the greatest treasure in the universe. Now, wait a second here. The greatest treasure in the universe is old. The way that it is spoken of within the series sounds like it's this millennia-old legend or prophecy that there is some great power out there that rivals everything ever in the universe. And yet, contemporary keys that only existed for the last 30 years are able to access it, keys which were likely forged by Akared himself. Now, again, I've gone into this a little bit more detail in the video about the greatest treasure of the universe, and I suggest that you go ahead and look it up. But I find the whole key thing with Akared and his recruitment of Marvelous and Bosco, to which he lies to them, to be pretty dubious. Because the only reason the Gokaigers are formed from this point is that Bosco learns the truth, turns Akared and Marvelous over to the Zanyak, and Bosco does his own thing. This leads to the supposed death of Akared, and then Marvelous takes over as the leader of the Red Pirates, and then forms the Gokaiger. He forms his new team of pirates, basically, with the Gokaiger keys, which they have no origin mentioned whatsoever. We can assume that they were made by Akared himself. But again, to what end, I'm not exactly sure why he would create more Sentai keys, and from what power source. Well, again, that's still up in the air. So Akared dies, and Marvelous takes over, and again, as I said before, he sowed the seeds to where Marvelous eventually goes to Earth to find the greatest treasure in the universe, and then we get the whole season. Now, Akared does not play a part within the season other than coming to Marvelous in visions. And what's actually very curious is that Akared gives him a little speech in, I don't know if it's a flashback or a vision or whatever it is, of what it means to be a pirate. Now, does that mean we have to assume that Akared is and always was a pirate of some sort? Because remember, one of the bigger things about the character dynamics of Gokaiger is that the Gokaigers were characters who were rough around the edges, and that they didn't fit with the particular Sentai mold of all 34 teams that came before them. Because as I said, a Sentai's task is to protect the Earth. That's plain and simple. The Gokaiger did not have that goal in mind. They just wanted to get the greatest treasure of the universe, and really only came to Earth as an ends to a means. I mean, they really had no business being on Earth, except tasking themselves with getting the greatest treasure in the universe and the greater power of the previous teams in which to access that. Which the greater power in itself also makes no sense, again, when you connect it all together. So Akared is basically telling what it means to go ahead and be a pirate, when Akared really shows no indication of the fact that he is a pirate of any kind. I mean, he's not even stealing anything, which is what pirates particularly do. He's trying to take that which belongs to its rightful owner back. You know, it's almost an altruistic endeavor that Akared is doing, because he really takes upon himself to do something that, frankly, the other Sentai should have done themselves. Nevertheless, he does it, recruits help along the way through deception. I can't make that point any more clear, that he deceives these two into helping him do this dirty work, basically. And again, his end game is to ultimately give the powers back to the Sentai. But we still have to question what his origin is. And again, he is the embodiment of the Red Rangers, but who was he created by, and what was his mission exactly? Because if he is a true Sentai and defends the Earth, how come he doesn't do it? Why is it that the only times he's appeared in a series is to fight the time god demon, or time demon god, that particular instance in which he brought previous Sentais together, and to go searching for the keys? This is a character who is not proactive in really anything that he does. Yes, in the movie, he did get the Super Sentai address book to Boken Silver, but you know what? I do think that given the laws that we have about the crossovers and the knowledge that a lot of the Sentai teams already have about each other, it would seem to me that Boken Silver could have accomplished the task without the Sentai book, and really we would have had the Magi Ranger crossover at some point. Okay? And then he disappears from Earth, and he doesn't actually return to Earth at any point. He's just out to go ahead and get the keys. Again, and not recruiting the other Sentais to go ahead and help him. So this character, to me, is just a big enigma. We don't know his origins. We don't know who or what exactly he is. How he's able to manifest previous Red Ranger powers, not to mention why only Red Ranger powers. Why is he the manifestation of just the Red Rangers? Why isn't he the manifestation of all the Sentai? Or is that another character that we have yet to go ahead and meet? Plus, you know, to be honest, there has been some fan theories that there are some other Rangers out there, the embodiment of all the Pink Rangers, all the White Rangers, all the Blue Rangers, all the Black Rangers, and so forth and so forth. Of course, that is fan speculation. But I wonder what the future is going to go ahead and hold for this Akared character. Is he just going to be this mysterious MacGuffin character who has no real backstory or planned arc to speak of, basically? Or is he going to be something that is developed later on? Because, you know, we're a couple of years away from the 40th anniversary, and he does crop up around anniversaries, as we know. Is he going to be part of the 40th anniversary? You're going to have the big Roman numeral XL on his belt now. I mean, I would certainly like to go ahead and know more about this character, because it just seems to me that he was created with a certain purpose, but what that purpose is, we don't really know. What is his end game here? And again, why isn't he more proactive in helping the other Sentais? I mean, you would think that somebody who is supposed to watch over Earth and keeps tabs on what the Sentai are doing, and so much goes into space to retrieve their keys, would provide more active assistance, because he's not tied to any particular team. There's no rule saying he can't go help the others, but why doesn't he? I like the idea of Akared, but I really would like to get a better explanation on everything that he is, because at the end of the day, he was an interesting experiment that we got in the Gokaiger versus Super Sentai movie. He was really a means to an end. Gokaiger, he helped form the Gokaiger team, but beyond that, what is he? I mean, I could not explain to somebody what he is in the franchise. What does he exactly mean to the franchise other than cropping up during anniversary specials? And I guess that's the thing I want to go ahead and just kind of spell out, is that he makes no sense logistically. You can't explain him. You can't make sense out of him. And that really bothers me. Because, again, going back to one of my major issues of Gokaiger is that a lot of stuff just doesn't make sense and is there to service the script. The script says, this is what's happening, therefore it is. And I think Akared is the physical embodiment of that, since, again, he is tied to the Ranger Keys and tied to Gokaiger and all that. So, in a sense, Akared represents all the negative aspects of Gokaiger and, in a sense, Super Sentai in general. He just happens to be that thing that's out there that helps move the plot along. I mean, he is a walking MacGuffin. Let's go ahead and put it that way. He is a walking MacGuffin. Well, guys, I think I've prattled on enough about Akared and his place in Sentai history. So I would definitely like to get everybody else's opinion on this, because, nobody ever talks about Akared. I mean, he's not really that important of a character, I think, in fandom, to where I've seen, like, a lot of fan art or explanations of his character or anything like that. He just seems to be kind of in the background of Sentai fandom, Sentai history. But I definitely want to know what your all's views and thoughts and opinions on this character is. So please leave your thoughts down in the comments section. I would love to go ahead and hear what you think of him. So definitely go ahead and let me know. And before we go ahead and close out, keep in mind we are still running the fundraising drive here. So guys, go to the link below to the Patreon account and donate what you can. That way we can help improve the tavern for better videos and better equipment and better technology. So I want to thank you guys for listening to me again. You guys all have yourself a good night, and the tavern is now closed.